guys, so now we're going to work on the bracket since we finished up the main body here. We're going to punch a hole on each side here. There's going to need to be a hole up front, and then we have these arced kind of pieces on the back. I'm going to probably start with the holes here because I would only have to do one and then I could mirror it. And then after that we'll maybe punch the hole in front, and then last we'll add these pieces because they're different on each side. So once we go to having asymmetry like that, we can no longer use the mirror tool, and mirroring will speed things up for us. So let's just kind of pick a side here. I'm going to hide this bolt, and before we punch a hole in, I want to kind of even up the geometry. So I'm going to insert edge loop, and I'm just going to put one in the center here. Let's look at the kind of the top view. Actually, let's hit Q to quit that tool. It's weird. Let's deselect and select it. There we go. And I just want to make sure, let's make sure things are following the way they should. So I'm going to take actually all these verts, let's move them out to match. Let's move these up a bit. There we go. So that's falling a little bit closer. Let's move this one down. It's falling a little bit closer to the shape of that bracket. And then let's check from this side again. And I'm thinking right through here is where that hole is going to go. So I want this to be as close to perfectly in the center as I can. That looks pretty good. So this right here is where that hole is going to get punched. To punch a hole, we're going to need an edge loop in the center line. So let's actually go to insert edge loop option box. I'm going to do multiple edges, and let's just do one, and that's going to put one directly in the center. And then we're going to need kind of holes, or we're going to need edges on the top and the bottom of those holes. Now they should all be cut in the center, and they should all be about the same size. I'm going to drop a loop here, and drop a loop there. And these 4 polygons right here are going to be where we actually make that hole. So I'm going to go to extrude. So I selected the faces, shift right click, went to extrude face, and now I'm going to scale those in. And after I scale them in a bit, I'm going to shift right click and go to circularize components, and then hover over twist in the tool, right click, and just untwist this. And since this one's on, kind of a flat surface here, we should be okay when we end up smoothing this later. We want to potentially get rid of some of that buckling. So let's Z back. And let's say I'm going to insert an edge loop here and an edge loop here. Let's grab this edge down the center, oops, and kind of help it so it rounds a bit. And the intention here is that we're putting kind of buffers in between where this curvature is going to happen. And the more we can kind of do that, the less chance there's going to be of that kind of puckering happening. So let's go ahead and try this again. I'm going to grab these 4 now. Going to extrude, let's scale that in, shift right click, circularize components, right click over twist, and moving to the right to kind of undo that. And let's look at a side view here. I think that might need to be a bit smaller, so I'm going to scale that down, and let's hit delete. And let's hit the 3 key, and now you can see we're not getting kind of that puckering. So to stop that puckering from happening, it's always good to put in, you know, some supporting loops, some kind of holding edge loops, and that's going to help it to retain the shape. So that hole looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the front view, go to face, and I'm going to delete half of it. And because we're modeling everything on the origin, we should be able to select this, shift right click, go to mirror, and go to the options, and we want to mirror in X, and it looks like negative because it's opposite of this side, and we want to merge border vertices. So I'm going to mirror that, and now we're going to have our hole on both sides. So hit Q to quit out of that tool. That's just the bolt that we're seeing. I can move that out a bit. But there you go. So that saved us some time. You know, if you want to hit 3, kind of look at that, make sure we're not seeing any weird kind of puckering, and we're not. So now let's punch the hole in the front. So I'm going to hit 1. And we're going to need an edge going down the center. Actually, it looks like that's the one we need. So again, I would say let's insert an edge loop here in the center and here, and then select both those edge loops, and from the top let's move them out a bit. So that's basically going to support the curvature of the shape. So we're basically adding in additional curves so that it'll hold its shape when we punch that hole in. To check this, if you hit, you know, the 3 key, it should still feel, you know, round. Nothing should kind of feel off if you look at the top down. Yep, that's a different thing. So our bracket feels, you know, smooth. Alright, so we know we're not kind of doing anything horrible. So now I'm going to take these 4 faces right here. I'm going to extrude in. Let's look at the front view. And we'll extrude these till it's about the right size. And I would say this should fall on the halfway point. So even though it's offset a bit, I'm going to make this in the spot I'm at. So I'm going to circularize components, middle mouse to untwist it. I'm moving right. Alright. And now even though I'm going to hit Q to clear the tool here, even though we put in the extra geometry, the one thing that's going to happen is these verts are not going to, you know, align with the other ones. So one thing we could do is grab these faces, and if you hit W, it's going to be in the center. So I can hold down V, and I'm just going to snap it so the center one meets directly with that center. Okay. So, but this is flat here. So one thing we can do is go to Deform and go to Nonlinear, and we can bend this. So bend is going to bring out this little kind of stick, and I want to rotate it. Let's go to our channel box. Let's rotate it 90 degrees in Z, and click on the bend. And if you middle mouse over curvature, I would just make sure first that this is going to bend the direction we want, which it's not. So we want to turn it this way. So let's rotate Y 90, and now it's going to bend it the way we want. So let's go to the top view, and let's take the curvature and let's start bending it back. Till it's following the curvature of this line. Alright, so we can grab that guy right here, click on curvature, let's just check that. Looks pretty good. So when we have a deformer, let's hit 1 again. What we'll actually have to do is edit, delete by type, history, and that'll get rid of the deformer, but it won't snap back to the way it was before. If we just delete the deformer when we're done with it, things are going to snap back and it's not going to look like we modeled anything. Let's go ahead and select those guys and delete them. Go back to object mode, hit the 3 key, and that shape looks pretty good. Right? We can maybe work with that bend deformer again a little bit. I'm seeing a slight kind of pucker, but not too much. Alright, so we have our holes. Now we have to put these U-shapes in. If we go back to insert edge loop and go to the options, actually, let's do multiple edges, and let's do 3. And that's going to give me where that U-bolt's going to go, and I just want to even, or not U-bolt, but that U-shape. I just want to even it out on both sides. And so we can put that shape directly in the middle now here. So I'm going to grab these 4 faces and hit delete. Go to vertex and just move this up. And actually, let's undo that. I think we need to cut that a few more times. So let's bring the back reference in just to make sure we're really doing this right. Let's go to object and grab the front view, go to attribute editor, and let's change this out for our back view, which I think is this one. Nope, this one. Yes. Alright. And what we probably want to do is rotate this 180 degrees so it's also kind of facing the back, because right now it's technically in the front. You know what, let's Z back. Let's use that front view and let's just insert edge loop. Let's try 4. I think that puts it in a better spot. So let's delete these guys and let's grab the vertical edges here, move them a bit to line up here, and let's just double check that's the wrong ones. So one here, and move it, and we're not seeing where that stops, so I'm just going to move it in a little bit so we have about the same distance right there. Alright. And I want to use these verts as part of the curvature, so I'm actually going to insert edge loops, a couple more, and let's do this as 1, so it's going to drop them even in the center. Let's put top and bottom. Good. And now what we can do is grab the verts in the corners here and here, and if we just move those down and scale them in a bit, that's going to help to round out that top. Select an object mode, let's check it in 3, and we're getting that top rounded out. Alright, so let's go to the other side here, go to face mode, and if we look at our back view up here, we can see we're going to have to select all these guys, delete, let's hit 1, and we're going to do The same thing with these two vertices, where we're going to kind of bring them back and scale them in a little bit, and that's going to add that curvature to the top. So just like we did over here, we're doing that same on this side. So now we have everything cut. You can double check it one more time by hitting the 3 key, and if you're happy with everything, we're going to select it in object mode, shift right click, go to extrude, and we're just going to pull out a little bit for the thickness of that bracket. And if we select in object mode again and hit 3, you'll see everything sort of looks good, but all the edges are mushy, right? So we're going to have to bevel those or add holding edges. Let's go ahead and choose to bevel. So I'm going to bevel all at once. So I'm going to select kind of every edge that kind of matches an outside. Hopefully that makes sense, and as you watch me select, hopefully it makes more sense. But an outside corner, I'm selecting basically every edge that makes an outside corner. So nothing that's kind of interior to the shape. And by beveling these, it's going to make it feel kind of more hard surface. We want this piece to feel like steel or iron, and currently it feels more like a soft rubber or plastic. Alright, these holes, we need to grab each one of those outsides, and I think it's just the hole in front now that we need. Both sides, hit the 4 key, just looking to make sure I have all, and I don't. I'm missing one right up here. Alright, so that's everything I need. So I'm going to hit 5, I'm going to shift right click, go to bevel, and let's bevel with 2 segments. And let's kind of zoom in here. And that's probably going to be, let's look at 3 segments. So you can do 2 or 3, it's just going to add more geometry. 2 is probably going to be good. Let's put this to maybe 0.25 because we want this to feel like metal, so we want a really nice crisp edge on it. So I'm going to go to object mode, hit 3, and now that definitely feels like metal. Probably have to scale this whole thing down just a little. So I'm going to hold down control as I'm doing this, just so it fits around that coil a little tighter. Alright, now we got our second piece done. Let's make sure we delete history. I don't think we moved our transforms at all, but let's go to the channel box. So transforms we did, so let's modify, freeze transforms. Let's edit, delete all by type history. It is properly named still, so this piece is done. So in the next video we'll move on to the top piece up here.